Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Flag. I'm your host, Lukas Wacker. With me, as always, we have Kyle Cushman, and welcome to the Monaco Grand Prix preview. Whew. One of the most spectacular events of the motorsports season across the board.
It's a crown jewel.
It is. It very much is. And we've seen, some teams going a little bit flashy this weekend, specifically McLaren with some very snazzy livery ideas here for this weekend. And we got a couple of news and notes to get you caught up on, specifically on McLaren. There's a little bit of news surrounding that camp. And then we've got, of course, our fantasy preview for this weekend. Who's in, who's out of our lineups from the previous weekend in the Spanish Grand Prix 2 weekends ago. And then we'll make our predictions with the pole sitter and, of course, the best of the rest and our podium as well. So stay tuned for that. But let's get into the news and notes for F1. And we'll start off with Lando Norris. He has signed a multi-year contract extension with McLaren, and the dynamic duo of Ricciardo and Norris will be staying at McLaren for the foreseeable future. And it's very well deserved for Lando Norris. He's taken step after step after step in all three of his consecutive seasons here in Formula One, and going into his fourth one next season and beyond. McLaren have tied him up, and I think it's a very, very smart move on their part. A young up-and-coming driver that has done very, very well so far to start this season, and I think McLaren is just being run beautifully right now. They across the board, whether that's in IndyCar or in Formula One, they're doing an exceptional job with both of their drivers and the on-track performance, and this is definitely another one of those cases as Lando Norris has signed a contract extension. So what do you make of the deal here, Kyle? Makes a lot of sense, I think, for both sides here that Norris is going to stay here at McLaren for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It just makes a ton of sense from both sides. From Lando's side, you get to kind of see your future through with McLaren here, and you can see the upward trajectory of the team and his performance, the potential that he has. That relationship's been there for multiple years now, dating back to before his F1 days as well. So it's just something that makes a lot of sense from both sides. From McLaren, you get to re-up a young, promising driver who's performing for you right now. And even if you did think that maybe somebody was going to try and poach him either from the Red Bull camp or Mercedes, as maybe unlikely as that potentially would be, although Mercedes, given some things that could happen there, if they did end up parting ways with both drivers, you could maybe see a scenario there where that would make some sense. But from McLaren's side, they at least save themselves from losing him for free. There would be a buyout clause, all this kind of stuff. So it just makes sense from all perspectives there. It's a relationship that's worked extremely well these last few years, seems to be even increasing, as crazy it would be to say from last year that they've been even better together. But it really does seem like Lando Norris is going to be, at least for right now, a McLaren driver through and through for many, many years. That's only continuing and probably will continue through 2023. And seems like he's going to be one of the key pieces in bringing them back to a championship contender.
Yeah, he's very marketable driver as well, marketable personality.
Another big aspect there. Yeah,
and he brings in some sponsorship dollars, and he's just all around beloved by the fans. So it makes a lot of sense from a marketing perspective, and of course an on-track perspective that they keep Lando Norris around. And he's only really going to get better here, and that's crazy to say, and how well he's performed in that car. He's just a very consistent guy. He's going to get that race win eventually, whether that comes this season or in the future, we don't know. But he's gonna definitely be out there to impress and look to solidify his future here at McLaren for many years to come. And I'm pretty sure a lot of the F1 fan base is very happy to see McLaren and Lando Norris re-up with each other. And speaking of McLaren, they are running a special livery this weekend in Monaco, paying homage to their sponsor Gulf, who was obviously back in the GT Le Mans days and everything like that. It is an absolutely beautiful. It's a stunner. It's one of this could maybe win Paint Scheme of the Year award when it comes time for that at the year-end awards that we did last season. An F1 car won it on your perspective last season with Mercedes. Let's see if maybe they go back-to-back here in terms of Formula One getting that award this season, because, wow, it is absolutely beautiful. I'm very tempted to make a graphic, no matter how poor or how good they perform this weekend, just based on that color scheme. It is beautiful. Baby blue.
You're definitely hoping for a surprise podium.
I hope Lando Norris ends up on the podium. Danny Rick, if he can get on the podium, very good around Monaco. Look a little bit sluggish maybe in the practice times, but we'll see on that on that front. But your thoughts on the one-off livery from McLaren this weekend, going with a throwback, obviously. And there's been some, some talk in the paddock or amongst F1 fans that maybe Monaco should be a somewhat throwback weekend, if you will, like NASCAR does with Darlington. So what do you make of that potential and the overall livery itself here with McLaren?
I absolutely love it. And I love the idea of making Monaco kind of that throwback event as well. It's one of those tracks that has so much history. And when you think about the weekend and how kind of the race is kind of less of the spectacle and it's more the qualifying, although the race recently has had its fair share of dramatics when you think about the Daniel Ricciardo stuff in 2016 and 2018, and then the Hamilton Verstappen battle in 2019 with the time penalty and all that stuff involved. Like, we've got some really, really solid Monaco Grand Prix recently, but I think it would just be even more spectacular if some of these teams came in with some of these throwback paint schemes or alternate paint schemes at the very least. So, and I should probably be saying livery, so I'm sorry. But anyways, I love what McLaren's doing here for this one-off. I'd love to see more teams kind of adopt this, and whether that's at home Grand Prix, going for a different livery, or maybe doing it at a specific race for everybody like a Monaco. Absolutely love the idea, and I think they absolutely smashed it with this livery, with the look and everything like that, with both drivers as well mixing up their helmets as well, going for some different throwback looks. Like, it's just, man, check every single box. McLaren is doing so many things great right now, and this is just another one to add to the list.
They're easily the best team in terms of entertainment in Formula One. Oh yeah, like the Unbox series and the drivers that they have, it is just absolutely incredible to think how far they've come over the past 6-7 seasons, where the dark days of the Honda engine and the ugly black and red kind of color scheme that they had there for a couple of seasons, to now this like full rebrand that they've totally embraced and taken the paddock by storm. It's truly remarkable, and just a kudos to everybody over there at McLaren. Like, if I ever got to work with McLaren, oh my God, I would lose my mind, because it just seems like such a fun place to be. And the energy that they give off, the vibe that they give off is just second to none. So props to them on once again making this weekend even that much more special. We've seen some teams in the past do these kind of one-off kind of liveries, if you will. Just I think it would to add to Kyle's point there, I think it would be a really, really cool spectacle to see, just making Monaco that much better, because people criticize the racing product for whatever reason. It's the spectacle itself being around Monaco, in the streets of it, the beautiful waterfront that it is, with all the yachts and the fans in the buildings and everything. It just brings out the celebrities. It's the stars of Hollywood. Of course, not this year, of course, with everything going on with COVID, but hopefully next time around in 2022, when the new generation of Formula One's here, we're going to see that, similar past and history that Monaco really brings. But definitely an idea to consider there, Formula One. Just, Liberty Media, maybe you want to just look at that for next season and whatnot. But cool thing there for McLaren. And of course, congratulations to Lando Norris on getting that multi-year contract extension. And the last little bit of news here, it basically seems like we just confirmed that the Turkish Grand Prix was going to be on the calendar, and just like that is off the F1 calendar for this season, originally replacing the Canadian Grand Prix. Sad emoji, but for the Turkish Grand Prix, it's no longer on the calendar after being in a red zone due to their COVID-19 situation there in the country of Turkey. So as a result, we're going to have a doubleheader weekend in Austria, once again at the Red Bull Ring for the second consecutive season. Of course, this track opened the 2020 season for Formula One last season with back-to-back races there. So we're going to get that once again this season, and both races were pretty solid there last season. It's one of the tracks where you can really take advantage of this back-to-back weekend, and it makes a lot of sense in that regard. Wish it was the Hockenheim Ring or the Nürburgring Ring, but I'll accept with the Red Bull Ring for this one, for the Austrian Grand Prix weekend. And what do you make of the decision here? It makes a lot of sense. Obviously, they didn't really have a choice. We see with soccer for the Champions League, they're having to move it from Turkey, of course, to Portugal. Of course, that's probably a big fan of that decision. But of course, maybe not the teams that you would want to be in that final, but just the moving itself and the decision to put Austria having back-to-back weekends there.
Yeah, well, for starters, on the soccer one, I'm glad you mentioned Portugal there because a shout out to Sporting Lisbon, the hometown or at least the lineage team in my family won their first league championship in 19 or 20 years. So big shout out to them. I don't know if you can maybe see it over there, a little emblem over there. But anyways,
all right.
But anyways, we're talking racing on this one, not soccer, but it just made sense, right? Like, yeah, you had to take it off. It was unfortunate your backup plan didn't end up working. So now you got to go to the backup. And it would have been nice if we could have had however many unique Grand Prix throughout the year, just didn't end up being feasible. So if there was one track that you go to back to back, I mean, Austria is a pretty solid bet, just given how the back-to-back went last year. So it's unfortunate that we do have to see two Grand Prix at one track this year. We were hoping we didn't have to do that, but it's just kind of the situation we find ourselves in.
Yeah, COVID world. That's basically it.
And I'd rather them go to a back-to-back or a doubleheader versus completely writing off a race weekend.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. With the season that we're getting right now, I think Austria could be a very, very interesting weekend, back-to-back weeks, because usually there's some tire strategy involved or some sort of mix up in the lead that provides some entertaining racing. So hopefully that is the case for both weekends at the Red Bull Ring. But that does it for the news and notes that's happened over the last week and a half or so in Formula One news. Let's go to our fantasy preview for the Monaco Grand Prix,
okay.
Kyle. In the last episode that we did with the Spanish Grand Prix, I didn't make really any changes to my lineup except for the turbo driver. That's a little bit different this time around. I'm switching it up with two different selections and two swap outs, if you will. And then I'm changing the turbo driver as well. What do you have in terms of overall changes before we look at the specifics here for Monaco?
I'll be honest, I've changed my lineup so many damn times. I don't even know anymore. But no, I've got two changes. Which is kind of funny to say because I ended up having to use my wild card because I changed my mind so many damn times about what I wanted to do for my lineup. So
well done.
I don't even remember at this point anymore what I saved and what I had at this point throughout this week because I've changed it so many times. But versus the last time we were at last weekend, of course, with the race at Catalonia, I've made two changes overall to my lineup here.
Okay, let's look at the specifics here. Similarities, it's pretty straightforward in that regard. So we can start off with that. Max Verstappen still in both of our lineups, very much a safe play. Just makes too much sense. His value is too strong right now. It's well off in terms of what Lewis Hamilton can bring to the table in terms of his overall budget costs. So it makes sense to keep Verstappen in there. He's up 0.6 million since the start of the season. So gradually gaining ground. I'm surprised it's not more, to be honest, but probably just that lack of race wins so far is preventing him from having a little bit more of a budget increase. But for Verstappen this weekend, the Red Bull looks pretty solid around there, as you would expect, because they, no matter what season or how strong they've really been in terms of the car performance, they've always been pretty solid around Monaco with that car setup and how it's built with the downforce and the rear stability that car possesses. You expect Max Verstappen to be up there for pole contention and race victory this weekend in Monaco. We'll see if that happens in our predictions, but looks good through the practice sessions and has had some struggles so far in his career at Monaco. But, he finished fourth last time out because, of course, we didn't race here in 2020. So we don't really have a really good correlation to go off of in terms of numbers or car performance from last season when the aero package is a little bit more similar. 2019 is an entirely different beast, so it's hard to really look at the numbers since then, but we can and we will. But Verstappen finished fourth in that Grand Prix, so he's not been too bad at Monaco, in that one race, but in his first race for Red Bull there in Monaco in 2016, he did wreck out. So it's been hit or miss for Verstappen so far at Monaco. We'll see if he breaks through this weekend, but it makes sense to keep him in our lineups, right?
Yes, exactly. And that's part of the reason there, like you explained, like Red Bull has always been solid here, regardless as to their performance throughout the entire season. It always seems like they're at least in the conversation for the win at Monaco. And just look to the last time we were here in 2019, Verstappen had the time penalty because of the contact with Bottas in the pits, comes out, isn't able to get by Hamilton, even though he had the speed advantage. Had he gone past him, he would have been able to get the gap to where that time penalty wouldn't have mattered, and he would have won the Grand Prix. Instead, he's not able to get around Hamilton, and because of the time penalty, he drops back all the way to fourth. So I like Verstappen at this track. I like Red Bull at this track. And because of the importance of qualifying for this weekend and the fact that unless things go catastrophically wrong, if you qualify at the front, you will finish at the front. I'm making the bold move. I'm using it. I'm using the mega driver this weekend on Max Verstappen. I think this could very easily be a pole. Well, easily is the wrong word to use, but I think it could be a very realistic situation where we see Verstappen on pole and win this race fairly decisively this weekend. The Red Bulls look good. Verstappen in the past has been good here at Monaco in terms of race pace as well. I don't see any reason why he shouldn't have a fantastic weekend here. Unless there's some kind of contact or some kind of issue in the pits, which with Red Bull has happened their fair share in the past year. But for me, I'm taking the swing. I'm rolling the dice. Mega driver, Max Verstappen this weekend.
It's a very good play. I'm just too much of a wimp, you know.
It's scary to do, man, because if you don't hit on your mega driver, you are screwed.
Yeah, it's 3 times the number of points. If you don't know what the mega driver is, it triples the point total for that driver for that weekend. And, you know, if this is a good weekend to do it because passing is so limited, strategy is fairly straightforward in terms of tire wear.
It's the safest time to use it for the most part.
Yeah, I would say so. And, you know, it's just the speed from practice that is preventing me from putting the mega driver on him just in case they don't go with it. And some of the quotes that I read, Verstappen isn't that confident, but then again, that could just be all a great bluff that he's doing. But Verstappen's usually pretty honest with the media, so I don't really read too much into like the behind the scenes kind of thing. He's usually pretty straightforward, like I said, and he doesn't really hold anything back. So that's just cautioning me from using the mega driver this weekend. So I'm gonna play it safe as per usual and not go with the mega driver at Monaco. I don't know when I'm going to use it, but it's not this weekend.
If you had your choice, you just wouldn't use it this year.
Basically, I wish that thing did not exist because it's just too much of a stressful addition to fantasy for me. I don't have to worry about in NASCAR. This is just,
Oh, could you imagine if it was in NASCAR? Oh, the chaos.
I probably would use it this weekend on Chase Elliott, but
really?
No, probably not. No. Definitely not. But for Verstappen, straightforward. I'm curious to see if the mega driver plays off for you this weekend, as I'm sure you are as well.
I really hope it does. But we'll see. We'll see
what happens on that front. I believe our second similarity, Lando Norris. You still have him in your lineup. You want to take this one first off?
Sure. One of the about 1,600 changes I made throughout this week was actually replacing Norris for Ricciardo at one point in some of the strategy play. I saved it. I regretted it afterwards. I ended up using my wild card. It's been a bit of a disaster of a week. I'm not going to lie, but I ended up putting him back in just because of the value. Once again, 13.9 million. He's one of the better value plays across the board because even if he doesn't have a great qualifying, you would think that with some of the strategy play, there would be some potential to gain a position or two with that McLaren.
Undercut is huge here. Yeah. Or overcut even.
Yeah. The big thing, it's just finding clean air and kind of making those passes through strategy and through the pits. The one concern is the fact that we only have one Grand Prix to pull from because, of course, we didn't have the race last year. So you're only looking at one race so far in his F1 career at Monaco. Qualified 12th, finished 11th, which honestly for a rookie there, and given the progression we've seen from McLaren, isn't too bad. The practice times look solid. So I did decide to leave him in my lineup there just because of the value there. The McLaren looks solid just in general this year. And even if it is like a qualify like 9th, 8th, and finishes like a 7th, 8th, that's still a pretty solid points day. So still rolling the dice here on Norris.
Yeah, his value just keeps on increasing with each and every weekend because he is outperforming Ricciardo right now. And the practice speeds, I was looking at Ricciardo very heavily this weekend, and I decided to go against that just because
a little too
of
expensive.
The practice speeds.
Yeah,
the practice speeds is what kind of prevented me from doing it actually this weekend because he's not quite to grips with that McLaren, it seems, and that's really unfortunate because this would have been a really good place to use Ricciardo given his past success here, but it could just be the biggest dummy in the world. And he could, I expect him to probably make Q3, but there's always that possibility that he doesn't. But Norris looks pretty solid on the timing sheets, says he feels pretty comfortable with the car. The car looks great. Contract extension. I think all the signs are there for Lando Norris to have a pretty solid weekend here, top 7 potentially for him. But given the Ferrari speed, that could be a little bit of of a question mark for Norris at the end of the day, but his value just keeps on increasing and my budget keeps on increasing because of that. So I'm going to keep Lando Norris in here for probably the remainder of the season. To be honest, I don't really see any need to take him out of the lineup given that McLaren's speed. But next on their list, I'm not sure what change you've really made. Maybe I do, but Carlos Sainz, is he still in your lineup?
He is still in my lineup. That is another one that I went back and forth on. At one point, I did leave Sainz in, I believe, the entire time, and for a very specific reason. I don't know. Yes, it was last time at Spain, where part of the reason why he was in my lineup was partially the home Grand Prix and everything like that. But the fact that he'd finished in the points in 100% of his races so far in his F1 career at Spain, a bit surprisingly, that stat remains true at Monaco for him. Over 5 starts in his F1 career, all 5 have been points finishes: 6th, 10th, 6th, 8th, and 10th. A couple of those fringe points finishes, but points finishes nonetheless. And has been a solid qualifier. Yes, as well. So I really like Sainz this weekend. And then when I saw the pace of the Ferrari in practice, however real that may be, kind of looking like a pretty nice weekend here for Ferrari.
Absolutely. That's why I'm going with him. Carlos Sainz, decent value for what he brings to the table. It's just his budget is very interesting because Leclerc has kind of been exponentially better than him, even though it's been really, really close. But Leclerc's just that $4 million more, but you're not quite getting the full value of Carlos Sainz. So it's just all over the place with him right now, but I'm going to keep him in my lineup. And it makes a lot of sense for me this weekend for the reasons you mentioned. Looks really good on the timing sheets, of course, with Ferrari this weekend, and he hasn't finished outside the points in his F1 career. So Carlos Sainz has all the makings to have a very good weekend here, and he's just a very precise driver. I feel like very steady, gets the most out of the car, and I see that happening here this weekend. Top 5 could potentially be on the cards if things fall their way for Carlos Sainz in qualifying and everything. If that speed picks up, a podium could be on the cards for Carlos Sainz from practice, but that remains to be seen. They've had a better than an extra day here, if you will, because practice happened on the Thursday. They get Friday off to kind of regroup, if you will, and they come back at it, of course, on Saturday. But Carlos Sainz makes a lot of sense here.
Yeah, and at one point, I did take Leclerc out of my lineup and then put him back in, but I did end up taking him out of my lineup at the end of things, just because I don't want to go too heavily into the Ferrari kind of camp and have both drivers in there. And spoiler alert, I've got them in as my constructor as well. So I don't want to go all in. I want to kind of mix it around with the drivers. So I did end up deciding to take Leclerc out of the lineup. Makes
a lot of sense in that respect. Then the differences, I guess, is 3 between the between the two of us, because you don't have Leclerc in your lineup and I do.
Okay.
I have put Charles Leclerc in my lineup, and his recent history in Monaco would probably suggest that you shouldn't have him in your lineup this weekend. And that's exactly why I am going with him. I think this is the time it really turns around for him. He had the bad luck in FP1 where he had the gearbox issue. Boom. The bad issue is out of the way for Charles Leclerc this weekend.
Yep.
Went to the top of the timing sheets in FP2. That's all I needed from Charles Leclerc this weekend. The pace is there. I'm using him as my turbo driver this weekend as well. So I'm going all in on Charles Leclerc. It makes a lot of sense. I'm taking out Sergio Perez as a result of that, and it's just only 0.1 of a difference in terms of the budget for that. So you call me naive, but I'm going with Ferrari speed by the practice time sheets. And spoiler alert, I'm going with Ferrari as my constructor as well, similarly with Kyle. So I'm going with all 3 in terms of the Ferrari stable this weekend. Leclerc's just been too in form right now for this season. He's scored a lot of points so far this season, given that Ferrari seat. I think he may have the edge over Sainz, but you never know with Monaco in terms of qualifying. One caution or stoppage with the red flag can totally turn your qualifying and your race hopes upside down. So hopefully that's not the case for these Ferrari guys. They can get a good qualifying effort in, maybe a top 4 qualifying spot if the Mercedes and the Red Bull don't quite nail their laps. But I'm optimistic by Charles Leclerc performance in practice. Just the race results haven't quite been there in the history, which would definitely give you a bit of a pause. But for me, I'm going to go all in on Ferrari.
Yes, it is basically the the name of the game this weekend, whether you want to go with Perez or Leclerc is kind of that secondary, most expensive option. For myself, I am switching in Perez for this one. He's matching basically, actually, no, Leclerc is, as you mentioned, slightly exceeding him in value now. But the Red Bull is just kind of there as in my opinion, the top car going into this weekend. Ferrari might show it in qualifying. They might be legit and they might prove me wrong. I just can't quite buy in. I think that they're the best of the rest. I don't think they're into that Mercedes Red Bull kind of territory yet. So for myself, I am going the Sergio Perez route. He hasn't been amazing in his career to this point at Monaco, just 2 points finishes. But as you mentioned there, one of those 2 points finishes is a podium back in 2016. So he does have the ability to kind of go through and get that really good result when he needs to. He's been really close to Verstappen over the couple of practice sessions. He's been within a tenth or two of his top times on similar tires as well. So I feel good about his kind of mentality. His form going into this weekend hasn't been fantastic, but I feel like this could be a nice turnaround for him with a good qualifying bid and kind of maintain that throughout a race. So Sergio Perez, feel pretty solid about him to the point where he is my turbo driver this weekend. I think it could be a nice little weekend for Red Bull. So I'm taking the plunge on the Red Bulls, going Verstappen mega driver, Perez turbo driver.
I like it. I think that's definitely my alternative strategy if I were to go with that. Excuse me. But for Perez, I just have a bit of a question mark on him right now in terms of that qualifying.
And it's a very fair one. Yep.
And just getting the most out of it when it matters most into Q3. Can he deliver? Because he just hasn't quite been there on qualifying pace yet so far this season. So I'm going to wait till he shows me it. I've had him in there for 2 consecutive weeks because I fit him in with the budget, but he hasn't quite delivered to the full capacity of what I thought he might. So I'm going to switch it back to Leclerc and see what he can give me. And if he doesn't deliver this weekend, I'm probably going back to Perez the next. So just kind of interchangeable right now with the budget situation. And I could definitely see Sergio Perez, this could be the weekend where he finally breaks through at Red Bull. So I think that does 4 out of the 5 in terms of the driver lineup. One difference here. I'm sticking with the same guy here in Pierre Gasly. His value has decreased 0.2 million now. So hasn't quite had the strong start to the season that we might have hoped for given preseason testing speed that we saw from the AlphaTauri. But then again, the tracks that we've seen so far to start the season haven't quite suited that car as of yet. And the track that it did suit the car the most was Bahrain, and he had some issues in that race, as we all know. So I just don't know what to do with Pierre Gasly. He's kind of frustrating me right now. He's better than Yuki Tsunoda, but he just isn't getting the points in terms of the actual placing order in the race itself, getting those fringe 10th place points, 9th place points. Looks pretty decent on the timing sheet so far this weekend for AlphaTauri, so that gives me a little bit of hope. Definitely should be ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, which is his first time here at Monaco ever across any form of motorsports. So I expect big things in terms of the differential between those two drivers this weekend. But for Pierre Gasly, has had decent results here at Monaco in his career. If I look back at the race last time, he finished P5 for the Red Bull when he was racing then, before he got demoted, of course, to the AlphaTauri later on that season. So I have some optimism.
Finished
for Pierre Gasly this weekend.
Toro Rosso the year before as well. So he's been pretty solid. And to that point as well, that's with some okay but not insane qualifying efforts as well. P8 start position to P5 finishing position, and then P10 qualifying position to P7 finish. So he's been one of the few drivers that, with a solid qualifying position, 8th and 10th is nothing to scoff at, has been able to go out and get a couple extra positions as well, which at Monaco could be a really, really big boost.
Yeah, because passing points obviously matter, how much you want to move up the running order. So I'm hopeful that Pierre Gasly can deliver that this weekend. And hopefully he does that for the first time really for me this season, or else maybe we're looking at Pierre Gasly maybe getting the boot next time out. But for his numbers right now, it's okay value for him. Esteban Ocon is very enticing with his numbers as you have him in your lineup, but I'm just going to stick it out with Pierre Gasly for at least another weekend here and see what he brings to the table here in Monaco.
Yeah, and you mentioned it there. I am sticking with Esteban Ocon for this one, up to 10.6 million in the driver value. So he's been a big reason why I've been able to go and afford some of these other options recently. But no, Esteban Ocon has, I think, the best combination of value in this range as kind of like a final piece. If you don't have one of the big constructors and you kind of need to pencil in like a George Russell or something like that, who's really down there in value, I think he's the best in this range with the value, the combination of the driver at this track and the potential of the car, because the Alpines haven't been great through free practice, but they've kind of, at least they were saying on the broadcast, they've looked at some areas where they need to improve so they know where they need to go. I like Ocon at this track because the last time he was here in, I believe it was 2018 for Esteban Ocon, because of course he missed 2019. Right. Was back on the grid, qualified P6. Weird. I know, right? Qualified P6, finished P6 in the Force India, compared to Sergio Perez as his teammate there, who qualified 9th and finished 12th. So looking at Ocon, he was very, very strong here the last time he was here, going up against a strong opponent or teammate as well in Fernando Alonso. I expect Alpine to be better in qualifying than they have through free practice so far. And I like Ocon's potential to maybe qualify in like the 8th to 10th range and grab a couple positions throughout the race as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really smart selection on your part there. I just want to make sure I maximize my budget so I don't go Esteban Ocon's, because he's, I guess, about 0.6 million cheaper than Pierre Gasly.
If I could, what I'll say is that if I could afford Gasly, I think I might have gone that route as well, just because he's finished in the points both times, has improved his finishing position both times versus his start. So I definitely like the Gasly play this weekend.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hopefully that ends up paying off for both of us. I hope Esteban Ocon does well for yourself there, because he's been on quite the roll, and it's good to see some more competitive lineups here, because it was a little bit of a slow start.
It was a slow start for himself.
But now you're starting to pick up some some speed. Let's move on to the last little part here. We're both making a change to our constructors. McLaren is out for both of us. Ferrari is in for both of us. And that's evidence through the practice speeds this weekend. It's very close. I think McLaren could definitely turn it on in qualifying, and Ferrari could kind of be a McLaren split between the two drivers if Ricciardo figures his stuff out by qualifying on Saturday. I think there's definitely a good chance he will, but if that doesn't happen, then the Ferrari is definitely the third best constructor this weekend, behind the Mercedes and the Red Bull. They could maybe get in that mix given their practice speeds, but just for this one-off weekend, I figured I'm going to switch it up with Ferrari. I don't anticipate that being a long-term play by any means, but if the pace is there in practice, I'm going to try and play it, because they're very similar. I think Ferrari is one thing cheaper, $1 million cheaper than the McLaren right now. So it makes a lot of sense in that regard to just, make that blatant switch and see what happens this weekend. I'm going all in a Ferrari, like I said, so hopefully that doesn't bite me in the butt and they give me some good points.
Yeah, I'm not going all in, but I'm going pretty in for the most part. Like I've got Sainz there, and I am switching at McLaren as well for Ferrari. I'd feel silly if they go out and show like the pace is real and they go out and get an awesome finish and I don't switch them in. I think part of that as well is the lack of pace that we've seen from Ricciardo. It seems like his main issue with that McLaren has been the braking zones. They kind of showed that through some telemetry on the broadcast. I think it was an FP2. And obviously Monaco.
I wouldn't know. I don't get up that early for practice sessions.
Hey, I watch it back. I don't watch it live most of the time. That's how bad my sleep schedule is. But anyways, for Ricciardo, it seems like the issue has been kind of the braking zones and getting used to that. And of course, at Monaco, that's basically the name of the game, is the braking zone. So I'm interested to see where he falls on qualifying day, because he is such a master of the circuit. But I feel so much more confident with Ferrari this weekend, to the point where people are talking about whether they can contend with Ferrari or can Ferrari contend with Mercedes, Red Bull, versus are they just going to be the best of the rest? And I think that distinction with the value and everything like that just makes them too easy of a play here.
Yeah, from all the media comments, it seems like, the paddock is actually legitimately kind of surprised by Ferrari's speed, and they think it's legit. So I would love that to be the case. If we can get three constructors, the three main ones that we've seen for a while, back up at the front of the grid with the McLaren, maybe getting in there with Lando Norris if Ricciardo comes in and surprises. We could be in for a really great Grand Prix in terms of the undercut and overcut strategy. It's going to be very difficult to pass if you can pass at all in this race amongst the front runners. Of course, if you have a stronger car in the back, they could definitely make some passes pretty effectively. But for the front guys, it's very much status quo for a large majority of the race until the pit strategy comes into play. So curious to see how that all plays out, but make some changes here for the Monaco Grand Prix. Looking forward to this one. Should be a really, really good Grand Prix overall, just the spectacle that is Monaco.
Yeah, no. And on that point, Monaco is not the race weekend that you look to for the overtaking and that to be the main point of the excitement.
No.
Monaco is to marvel at these drivers and their driving ability. And whether that's focusing on qualifying or doing it on race day, whatever, this is like one of the most insane racetracks in the world when you look at the track and the car that's on it. There's no reason that these cars should be allowed on this racetrack, given how narrow it is, given how just everything about it is just fantastic. The history of it, the cars and how on edge they are throughout the entire race. Those qualifying laps are absolutely mental. So appreciate Monaco for what it is, the history of it, the cars, the driver talent, all that kind of stuff, rather than trying to watch it for overtakes and complain about the lack of overtakes. Because yes, that is where a lot of excitement in motorsports comes from at most tracks, but Monaco isn't most tracks. This is one where you can truly appreciate the talent that it takes to drive one of these cars at the circuit.
Yeah, preach. That needs to be out there for the world to hear. It's just it's a simple take, but it's the right take. It just needs to be prefaced more that this isn't about, passing, who can make the most passes. This is about, the nostalgia that this historic country kind of brings, if you will. It's basically the country, what we see in that harbor. It's not very big. So it's very crazy to think that they're able to put on an event like this where it's their main roads kind of thing, and they just shut it down for the weekend and everybody just gathers around the harbor. I mean, just remember Kimi Räikkönen wrecked out of this thing and then he went onto the yacht during the race. I mean, that is just the classic Monaco experience. And if Räikkönen did that again this year, I would absolutely lose it. Social media would lose their minds if that were to happen. Not to say that I want Räikkönen to wreck out, but if we did get that in the end of things, I wouldn't actually mind it too much. But looking forward to the race nonetheless. But let's get to our predictions for this weekend. We'll go qualifying first. Pole position. What are you thinking here for the pole pick for the Monaco Grand Prix? Who gets probably the most insane qualifying lap of the season here this weekend?
I think it's going to come down to Hamilton and Verstappen. I know, going out on a limb on that one. One lap, I think it's going to be a great, great spectacle. I can't wait to see both of those on boards, but I do think Max Verstappen gets the edge in qualifying. I'm
going with Verstappen as well for the pole pick.
Okay.
I don't know. I just have a funny feeling maybe Verstappen is, not showing us all his cards in terms of the media stuff. And this would be a great place for Verstappen to get his title charge back out on track after Hamilton winning a couple consecutive weekends there in Portugal and Spain. I guess Hamilton winning his 100th Grand Prix soon. I don't know what the heck that is now with all the schedule shakeups, but I had it for Canada. Then I guess it went to Turkey. Now it's Austria. I don't know what I'm thinking now anymore, but I picked probably the most confusing race weekend for it to happen. But nonetheless, we'll see what happens for Hamilton's 100th inevitable victory in Formula One. I'm skeptical that may happen this weekend a little bit. And so that gives you a bit of a prelude to our podium predictions for myself, at least. But the best of the rest, before we look at the podium, what are you thinking here for best of the rest? Who comes behind the two main teams? But there's a couple of guys that maybe could get up in the mix there with the Ferraris and the McLaren.
Yeah, this is a fascinating one. Just look at the Ferraris and how good they've looked, all this kind of stuff. Your mind would initially go to Charles Leclerc, but I'm going to say the consistency pays off for Carlos Sainz. He's looked really, really solid this weekend, has been coming to grasp absolutely fantastic with that Ferrari. So I'm going to take Carlos Sainz to go out and get that best of the rest finish.
Okay. Mine's interesting because I don't know how I want to put this, but I don't have I have a different guy on the podium than the top two. So I don't want to classify him as the best of the rest. So I'm going to put a guy beyond that, and I'm going to go with Lando Norris. I think he's going to put in a shift this weekend. I think it'll be really close between him and Carlos Sainz for this best of the rest spot, like I said, or like you said. So I don't know. I just love Lando Norris. I'm just going to go with him as best of the rest. Essentially, the pace looks pretty solid as well. So let's get to the podium. You've gone first for the first two. I'll go first here for this one.
So for this, should we go winner to third, or should we still keep it third to first? Because I feel like
we can go winner to third.
Yeah, because I feel like kind of doing it the opposite is first and second is usually the same. So doing it this way is probably okay. Anyways, who's going first for this one?
I'll go first for this one.
Okay.
So surprise, I'm going with Max Verstappen to win this race.
Same here.
I think it'd be really, really cool for Verstappen to win this. His first Monaco Grand Prix victory would really solidify that title challenge again this weekend, because Hamilton's been on quite the roll here lately. Like I said, with qualifying, Verstappen has that potential to really execute this weekend. Had the pace in 2019. He could have the pace again here in 2021, of course. So I'm going with Verstappen to win this race. And then I imagine you have Lewis Hamilton second, because I do. I think they're going to finish 1-2 once again to start the season. 5 consecutive races here. It's going to be between those two, basically 1-2 the entire season, it appears. But I think this weekend is going to be no different in Monaco.
Yeah, I've got Verstappen on pole, finishing first on pole. He's my mega driver. I got to back that up, of course. Hamilton second for this weekend. And this is a weekend where Red Bull need to capitalize. They need to get the win. They need to get back on track.
Yeah.
If things go wrong, if Hamilton gets the win, if Mercedes get the win, starts to build up a bit of a gap, and that's something that you don't really want heading into this next kind of stretch of the season. So for Verstappen, obviously not must win, but is feeling starting to maybe the temperature starting to raise a little bit. You need to maybe go out and get that kind of standout performance, especially the way that things are trending recently, with Mercedes looking really, really strong recently. So Verstappen, this feels as close to a must win as you can get at this point of the season. Hamilton second, and rounding out the podium for myself is one where I think it opens up quite a bit more, because you look at the Ferraris, the pace they have. Do you want to go Bottas or anything like that, just given the qualifying and how much that matters and just the car he has? But I'm going to say that Sergio Perez goes out and completes the Red Bull 1-3, gets back on the podium there for Red Bull. And I think this is a big weekend for Red Bull. I think that they are the main dominant, or I shouldn't say dominant, but the number one car this weekend, the number one constructor this weekend. They need to capitalize on that. Perez has looked good throughout practice. I think he can put in a good qualifying lap. We've seen that already this season. He's qualified very strong at points this season, faltered at others. I think this is going to be one where he's on his game. He's going to have a really good qualifying, and he's going to translate that into a podium here for Red Bull.
I'm not going with Sergio Perez as my third selection. I'm going with my turbo driver. I'm going with the Monegasque himself, Charles Leclerc.
Okay, both of our turbo drivers, third for ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. Predictable, I think, yes. But Charles Leclerc looks really good on the timing sheets. I think he finally reverses that Monaco curse this weekend. I hope I'm not jinxing him here. Clip it up if I do, as per usual. But I think Leclerc looks pretty solid. I think he's matured enough as a driver here, where those demons of Monaco have kind of been moved past him a little bit into the past, hopefully now. I think he's matured as a racing driver. It looks pretty solid in the timing sheets, like I said, and the Ferrari just looks overall pretty solid as well. So Charles Leclerc is my guy this weekend to upset and get a different podium placer here this weekend. I don't see Bottas getting on the podium, to be honest. I think this is one of his lesser tracks on the calendar itself. I think he could potentially, finish 5th, 6th range if Ferrari goes up there and actually performs in qualifying. I think there's the potential for that this weekend. I think Perez is going to be in for a shout for a podium this weekend, but I'm going to go with Leclerc, the home favorite, and he gets it done in Monaco for the number 16 team there at Scuderia Ferrari. So that's our predictions for the Monaco Grand Prix weekend. Fantasy looking a little different this weekend, which is great to see. Our podium looking a little bit differently as well for that third place runner, and the best of the rest looking a little differently as well. Shall be a very, very exciting Grand Prix weekend here for round number 5 of the 2021 Formula One season. Final thoughts, Kyle, before we wrap up this episode.
Just so pumped for this weekend. And already the first Formula 2 race on Friday was pretty solid, going into a couple races on the Saturday. Just such a fun weekend at Monaco. Just the spectacle of it all. I've said it all basically already. I just love the circuit. I just love marveling at the driver's skills to the point where I have gone back and rewatched practice sessions because of it. It's just, I can't fathom being that on the edge and going that fast with the barriers coming up that close, all those different things. I just absolutely love this circuit so much from so many different perspectives, from Saint-Devat and the heroics into Saint-Devat through to things like the Nouvelle Chicane. And like, there's just so many fantastic parts of this track. My personal favorite, I think, is probably Tabac, and just how on edge you have to be to send the car through full speed. Oh, just absolutely love the circuit so much, and cannot wait for qualifying tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I mean, this is where the drivers get tested to the absolute limit mentally, really. This is a very challenging track. One wrong move and you're into the barrier. There's no forgiveness here in the streets of Monaco. And I think that's really what we're looking forward to this weekend. The marvel that it is. The marvel in Monaco is what we're going to claim this weekend here. Hashtag it. You know, we heard it here first. But we're looking forward to the Grand Prix itself. Shall be a very interesting one. Cam Verstappen and Hamilton go 5 consecutive weekends here with going for that race victory and that title challenge that we all expect from them. Or will somebody new get up into that front mix? Should be an interesting storyline there to watch this weekend. But make sure to follow us on Instagram at The Green Flag Pod, as well as Twitter at The Green Flag Pod. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. We would really appreciate it. All the links to our social channels will be in the description of the YouTube video. But for this episode, I've been Lukas Wacker. He's been Kyle Cushman, signing off for now. I'll give you a race recap for the Monaco Grand Prix, and enjoy the racing on the streets of Monaco, everybody.